गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. We are on chapter 4 Panchadashi Dvaita Vivek, and last time we saw that example was given that with regards to inclusion and exclusion. Vyatirek is exclusion and Anvaya is inclusion. And one was told that Duradesham Gate Putre Jivat Yevatra Tatpita Vipralambhak Kavakyena Mrutam Matva Prarodiditi, that although a son is alive in a distant land, his father, deluded by a statement of a liar, grieves and weeps, imagining his son to be dead. So where is the son for him? Where has he, how, why is he, what is he thinking? Even though the person is there in a distant land, this person is having thoughts that his son has died and becomes miserable. So is there any reason for to be miserable? No, but he feels miserable. And another example is exactly the other way. Mrutepi tasmin vartayam ashrutayam na roditi atas sarvasya jivasya bandha krun manasam jagata. And exactly the other case is, although really dead but having not known, that means that the son, this is in the second example, the son in a distant land is known, but nobody has even told the father. He doesn't know that he's dead, and he's sharing with all the people how his son is, how he's successful, how he's living in the distant land, etc., etc. But he doesn't know that he's already dead. So in this way, two examples were taken, and the conclusion of these, through these examples, was Ataha sarvasya jivasya bandhakrut manasam jagata, that the bondage of all jivas is only at the level of mind. We become miserable at the level of mind, we become happy at the level of mind. It has got nothing to do with the objects of the world. You are the same, the sofa is the same, but this camera is the same. Object has got no problem. But our interaction with the object, how we process it in our mind, attitude we have in the mind, what we think about that object in the mind, what value we have given to that object in our mind, what emotions we are harboring about that object in our mind, what memory we have about that object in our mind, all these things determine and bring about joys and sorrows in the mind. But the object has got nothing to do with it. It is your interaction, your mental projection about the object. Just like that man we have seen, two examples. One man gets the wrong news, becomes miserable, and the other man does not get any news about the dead son and is happy. So where is the problem? It's not in the being alive or being dead. It is how he processes it in his mind. A doubt is raised. Now this is where we stopped last week. A doubt is raised that if it is said that external objects carry no significance for joys and sorrows, and that all experiences are in the mind only, will not this line of thinking lead to Vijnanavad of the Buddhas? According to the Buddhas, what they say, that Jagat Mithya, the world is not existing. It is existing only in your mind. Isn't it? This is what they say. So what is the take of Vedanta on this? That will be told. But now, right now, the doubt we are seeing. Remember in few verses before, what did we say? For mind to exist, for a thought to happen, what is required? There should be consciousness, the substratum. There should be object out there. And when these two things come together, or when these two things are there, when there is a consciousness and there is, or I should say, a reflection of consciousness, and there is the object, then alone mind can come about. If there is no object in the world, can the mind come about? No. If there is no consciousness, which is not possible, if it is not there, can the thought come about? Not possible. So the right ingredients have to be there. So in a dead man, there is no consciousness. Can he have a thought? No. In a sleeping man, in a sleeping person, consciousness is there, but he is not aware of the objects. The senses are all closed, have been absorbed back into their source. Therefore, no cognition of the objects, even the objects are existing. But for his mind, there are no objects. There can be no thoughts, isn't it? So here it is told, Vijnanavado bhahyartha, Vijnanavado bhahyartha, Vaiyarthat syadide heti chet, Vaiyarthat syadi heti chet, Nahyadhyakaram Nahyadhyakaram Bahyasyapekshitatvatah Bahyasyapekshitatvatah. This is being refuted that no objects are required, and if no objects are required, because the whole world of objects is only in the mind. This was told, by the Vijnanavad, a stream of thought prevalent during those times, or in the society we see that this thought is there. So he says, if one concluded from the above discussion that the external objects being of no consequence, one is talking about Vijnanavad of Bauddhas, it is wrong conclusion. The whole world is not just in your mind. The whole world is not just in your mind. Why? We will see. Because for the eruption of thought in the mind, an external object is essential. For the mind to exist, for the thought to erupt in the mind, precipitate in the mind, object is necessary. If there is no object, can there be a thought? Not possible. Thought is only possible when there is knower, known, knowing. So knower, known, knowing, observer, observed, observing, seer, seen, seeing, hearer, heard, hearing. Or you can keep this triad, you can keep going. But why is this possible, the triad? It is because consciousness on one side, objects on the other side, and the mind in the mid. As a result, the mind comes about. And that consciousness forgets that it is the consciousness. It becomes the subject. See? Yesterday what did we say? Not yesterday, last class. Ishvara out of his own free will became the Brahman out of his own free will, because of his, you can say a divine desire, he became two. What did he become two? He became Ishvara and Prakriti, or Ishvara and Maya. Why? Leela. It's a game. Exactly the same way the the reflected consciousness, or the conscious, the reflected consciousness, it starts manifesting as two. What is that two? The subject and the object. The moment this happens, mind comes about. Why does it happen? It happens. It's a phenomena. There is no why for a phenomena. It happens. And this is your experience. Also. So, bahyartha vayyarthyat vijnana vada yasyat iti chet. The Vijnanavadis say that all the experiences are at the level of the mind, and therefore the gross world is mithya. It is of no consequence. Yes, we also say that the whole world is at the level of the mind. But what is at the level of the mind? Your take of the world. We are not saying that that woman is at the level of the mind. That woman is real. But what is taking place in the mind? My interaction to her as mother. My interaction to you as friend. This is the mental creation. This is mithya. The gross world is not unreal. It is the manifestation of the divine, of the Ishvara. But your perception of the divine world as mother, daughter, sister, my camera, my body, my mind, I will die without breathing, I cannot live without eating. If I don't have a house, where will I go? Etc., etc. All these things, this is your mental creation. This is the mithya, not the gross world. It is something worthy to contemplate upon. Now, if you also say that everything is only a mental projection and is the root cause of the jiva's bondage, is this not like to end up in the same Vijnanavad? If this is your doubt, so he is telling the student who is coming up with the doubt that everything is mental projection. He says, no. He says that it is not so, because for the formation of the mental image, the presence of external objects is essential. You cannot think of an object called square without that square expressing in the creation, isn't it? You cannot have a thought of a mountain without an object of mountain existing in the outside creation. You don't. See? The mental projections have their basis on the external gross world created by God. This we have already talked about in our last class. The Lord himself manifested as Maya, and through the Maya he excited the Maya. The Maya became Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Out of that came the space, air, fire, water, earth, and mind and intellect, and everything is pervaded by the Lord alone. If the Lord is not there, Maya cannot multiply herself. The Prakriti cannot multiply itself. See? If now take the same thing at this level. If the consciousness is not there, the mind cannot express or comprehend or think or feel anything. It is not possible. The variety is possible at the level of mind, isn't it? We are talking about at the individual creation. So just like at the Ishvara's creation, he himself became the world. Exactly the same way, at the Jiva's creation level, this Jiva, this individual himself became the mental world. Mental world. Not the gross world. He did not create the gross world, it was already there. Isn't it? So this way we do not accept that everything is a mental projection. The outside world is created by the Lord. What is that which is created by the Lord? Is the sofa created by the Lord? Is a chair created by the Lord? Is that, what do you call this, unit created by the Lord? Is this house created by the Lord? Will we say that? Then what is created by the Lord?
Nature. Essence.
No, but what? If Lord became the world, what did He create in the world?
Nature and
He created space, air, fire, water, earth, etc., etc., etc. Isn't it? Man, woman, animals, trees. Everything He created. Remember in this chapter, how did we begin the chapter? The Ishvara Srishti and Jiva Srishti, isn't it? The God's creation and individual creation. Where, till what point did God creation was? Remember? After having created the creation, He entered, and that's it. He entered. He did not enter and then get attached to the mind. He did not enter and get attached to the objects of the world. That phenomena is going on. But this world of attachment that we have created for ourselves and become miserable on account of that, become elated on account of that, become desirous on account of that. See? We run towards that, we run away from that, we have likes for that, we have dislikes for that, we have joys because of that, we have sorrows because of that. This mental world, God did not create. This is Jiva's creation. See? This is Jiva's creation. This is the individual creation. This is not Vijnanavad, which denies the external world as mithya, as null and void. This is not accepted in the Vedanta Shastra because without the external objects, the internal images cannot be formed. The same objection can be answered in yet another way. Vaiyarthyamastu va bahyam, vaiyarthyamastu va bahyam, न वारयितुमीष्महे न वारयितुमीष्महे प्रयोजनमपेक्षन्ते प्रयोजनमपेक्षन्ते न मानानीतिः स्थितिः न मानानीतिः स्थितिः. Now he is giving a different way of answering the same question. He says, or let the external objects, that is God creation, be not important at all. You may say that way. We can do nothing about their presence. What is that we cannot do? Can you do anything about the mountain? Can you do anything about the trees? Can you do anything about the wildfires that are going around? Can you do anything about the floods? Can anything be done about it? Cannot do anything about it. The means of knowledge, senses, mind, etc. do not expect any purpose in knowing an object. What does that mean? That a presence of an object in the outside world, can you remove it? No. Can you do anything about it? Cannot do anything. Sun is there, it is very hot. Oh, 36 degrees, my God, it is, oh, suddenly today it has become very cold. Day before yesterday it was 26 degrees, today it is, oh my God. Can you do anything about it? Did you create it? So where is the misery here on account of the cold? If you can do nothing about the cold, then do nothing about it. Why you want to create thoughts about that cold? That it is very cold, that I am miserable, that why this has happened, when will it go away, how many more days are there? It was so beautiful few days ago, now it has become miserable. Miserable is not the weather. You are miserable. Your mind is miserable because it is interacting with that weather in an unhealthy way, with an expectation, with a desire, with a memory, isn't it? That is why the mind becomes miserable. So, whether the external world is real or imaginary, isn't it? Can you do anything about it? Can you do anything about it? Nothing. So forget it. So don't become miserable on account of it. And that is what is told here. If one accepts your argument that external objects are not required for the formation of mental images, that without the presence of the external world, God's creation, one can still become miserable because it is all only mental. Nothing can be done about God's creation, only the mind is at one's own disposal. If the mind is thinking about the world, it will become miserable. If the mind is contemplating on the divine or the divinity, on the essence, on the Lord, eventually it will become divinized. This is the only difference. But where is our attention? On the world, on the world, on the world. And we hear these questions again and again. Why there is so much misery? Why the people are dying like this? What would have happened to those people who were caught up in the floods in different parts of the world this time? So many floods in so many countries. What's the point of thinking about it? Can you do anything about it? No. But we feel by talking about the floods in India, in Poland, in Eastern Europe, in China, by talking about it, are you going to improve anything? Are you sharing your feelings with those people there? Is it helping in any way? We only talk. Nobody will give any donation to those fellows. We only talk and feel good that at least we talked about it and thank God it is not happening to us. That's all that is. Hypocrites we are. माननी प्रयोजनम न अपेक्षन्ते मानानीति Manani prayojanam na apekshante. Furthermore, by themselves, the means of knowledge, that is, the mind and the sense organs, have no purpose to see or not to see, etc. This is, if you catch this, very good. Are the eyes seeing the objects of the world for themselves? Do they have any purpose? Are the eyes seeing you for any purpose? No. The purpose of the eye is to illuminate, that's it. The purpose of the ear is to hear sounds. The eye is not attached to her or to her or to her or to the cat or to the camera or to the body or to the breath. It is not attached to anything. And therefore, without any issue, it is able to move from one object to the other, isn't it? The ears are also able to move from one sound to the next sound, isn't it? All the five senses are able to drop one and be available for the, not attached, be available for the next one. Then that is also dropped, then the next one, then that is dropped, then the next one. Agree or not? Same thing is going on in the mind also. Is the mind attached to the thoughts? The thoughts are also coming and going. Mind is not attached to the thoughts. It allows the thought to appear, then it goes away. One thought goes away, then the next thought comes, then that also goes away. No attachment. Then for whom, where is the problem? The problem is of the individual who owns all this and gets attached to this fellow, to all these stimuli. So just like eyes have no purpose with regards to the objects, so also mind has got no purpose with regards to the thoughts that are coming. No purpose at all. It just keeps pumping out thoughts after thought after thought. The eyes also keep pumping out image after image after image after image after image. Only what is seen, heard, etc. in the external world can be experienced by the mind. And how does it experience? It experiences by the way of thought. The sincere seeker leaves God's creation alone to take care of itself and focuses his attention on the mind, which is creating the problem. So truth is, the mind is also producing one thought after the other thought after the other thought. But this ego is also an idea of the mind only, isn't it? What is Antakaran? The inner equipment? Mana, Buddhi, Chitta, Ahankar. Mind, intellect, memory and ego. Ego is also the thought, I thought. And this I thought is the one which is owning all other thoughts and creates all the... So where is the problem? In the mind is the problem. Actually there is no problem, but this is the perceived problem. And this I needs to get convinced that there is no problem in the mind. That even the mind is thinking one thought after the other thought because it is not attached to the previous thought, isn't it? But the ego has got vested interest. He has memories, he has past, he has expectations, he has future. And therefore, fear, anxieties, desires, and he gets caught up in all. Then he gets caught up in all this and tries to find a way. Hence the Upanishad says the path is so narrow that there will be no crowds on this path. Very few people are able to make this distinction. Very few people are able to even appreciate and stay with that. That just like eyes do not have any purpose, the mind also has got no purpose. And because we do not accept that, then we do pranayam, we do concentration exercises, we do japa sadhana, we do pujas, we do contemplation, we do satsang. Why? Because we have not come to cognize, we have not become convinced that the thoughts that are erupting in the mind are useless. We have given value to them. And because we have given value to them, we feel that they are important. The thought called mother is very important. The thought called body is very important. The thought called hunger is very important. The thought called future is very important. The thought called past, reminiscing the past, that is very important. Because you have given the importance. Till you don't get convinced, that means devalue. And that is all that you have to do, devalue. You don't even have to devalue. Let the mind go on. It has got it, that is its habit. You watch, you stand apart. Don't focus too much on the mind. Instead, focus on the one who's illuminating that mind, which is erupting so many thoughts, isn't it? Because if you give too much value, but if you take Kriya Yoga, Japa Sadhana, Hatha Yoga, Raja Yoga, they take the ownership and they work on the mind. Because too many thoughts become a problem for the mind, and when they do those exercises of chanting, japa, puja, contemplation, meditation, pranayam, then what happens? The number of thoughts in the mind reduce. See? But Vedanta's view is very different. It says, let the mind have zero thoughts or a tsunami of thoughts. It has got nothing to do with you. You are the one who is illuminating the presence of the thoughts and the absence of the thoughts. This is the view, this is the standpoint of Vedanta. Now a doubt is raised, if the mind is the sole culprit, who creates so much havoc by creating duality, Dvaitam? Why not control the mind? Bandhaschenmanasam Dvaitam, Bandhaschenmanasam Dvaitam, Tan nirodhena shamyati, Tan nirodhena shamyati, Abhyasedyogamevato, Abhyasedyogamevato, Brahmagnanena kim vada, Brahmagnanena kim vada. If mental world is cause for bondage, then it can be removed by absorption of mind, the student is saying to the teacher. Therefore, one should practice the yoga of absorption of mind. What is the need of knowing Brahman? See? He's saying, why do we have to know if the problem, the issue, the joys and sorrows and fluctuation and anxieties and guilt, all this is in the mind, why don't we absorb the mind? And why can't we do yoga, pranayam? Prana bandhanat liyate manaha. Ramana Maharshi says that at the juncture of the two in-breath and the out-breath, merge your mind. Absorb your mind. It can be done. And then what? Then by doing this, the Dvaita, the duality that is appearing in the mind, because of which the mind is irritated, disturbed, miserable, that will be removed. See? Every night, all the problems go away when you go to sleep, isn't it? Whatever problems were there during the daytime, if you even have the issue, some very big issue, even before sleeping you are thinking about it, but once you go to sleep, it's gone. It's non-existent for you. He says, why can't we do that consciously and remain absorbed all the time? See, this thought, because mind is the problem, and this thinking is there that we can absorb the mind. So what do people do to absorb the mind? They take drinks to absorb the mind within. They take drugs to absorb the mind within. Because they cannot handle the mind. They want to get rid of the mind. Suicide. Some people do pranayam by breathing, controlling your breath. The number of thoughts in the mind can become less. By taking the name of the Lord, the number of thoughts in your mind about the world can become less. By concentrating on the various chakras, the thoughts in your mind can become less. And slowly, the mind gets absorbed. So the student is saying, only yoga needs to be practiced. Why should we talk about Brahma Jnanam? Pranayamam, Pratyaharam and Chitta Vritti Nirodham should be able to eliminate the mental bondage which creates the misery. He probably has not studied yoga because there it is said Chitta Vritti Nirodha iti yoga, but there is one more verse after that, and that is Tada Drashtuhu Swarupe Avasthanam. After having absorbed the mind, Tada, then Drashtuhu, see, Swarupe Avasthanam. After having absorbed the mind, then you see the essence. What is the position? What is the essence? What is the substratum? Put your attention on that. Otherwise, the Yoga Sutra would have concluded there at Chitta Vritti Nirodha Yoga. It didn't. It added one more verse. And after that verse is all explanation of, because the student does not understand what does it mean that Chitta Vritti Nirodha, what is the mind, what is Chitta, what are thoughts, what does it mean, what does absorption mean. So then explanation begins of the each word. But otherwise Yoga Sutra, Atha Yoganuशासनम Chitta Vritti Nirodha iti yoga, Tada Drashtuhu Swarupe Avasthanam. These three sutras, step by step, concludes everything. So in this verse, the student is saying, what is the point of knowing the self, knowing the reality? Why can't we just absorb ourselves? Why can't we just absorb the mind and all the misery will be over? Valid point. But tell me, my friends, every night the mind gets absorbed, isn't it? Every mind, you forget all your problems of the day. You forget the dreams also. You forget the dreams quicker. But takes a little bit of time to forget the daily problems, the daily misery, the disease, the mental, physical, emotional. Takes a little bit of time. But when you go into deep sleep, everything is forgotten. But is it forgotten permanently? The moment you wake up, the misery comes back. Isn't it? Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. So, yes, it gets absorbed, but it again manifests itself the next day. It is not a permanent absorption. Mind cannot get permanently absorbed. It will. This cycle is going on throughout your life till now, from birth time. Every day your mind gets absorbed, again in the morning it gets involved, comes out of absorption. See? So here the teacher is now saying this expression of frustration. So here, okay, maybe I have answered or not answered, let's see. The expression of frustration is answered by the teacher. What frustration? Why do we have to know Brahman? Why can't we just absorb the mind? तात्कालिकद्वैत शान्तौ अपि आगामि जनिक्षयः अपि अप्यागामि जनिक्षयः ब्रह्मज्ञानं विना न स्यात् ब्रह्मज्ञानं विना न स्यात् इति वेदान्तडिण्डिमः वेदान्तडिण्डिमः We did the text called Vedanta Dindima, the roar of Vedanta. What is the roar of Vedanta? Here it says, by the yoga of absorption of mind, although there is a negation of the mental world of duality, the freedom from future births and death is not possible without the knowledge of Brahman. Thus declares the Vedanta Shastra. So my example, that every night your mind gets absorbed, but the next day comes. How long can you go to sleep tonight and say tomorrow I will not wake up? You will wake up. Very rare few know that they will not wake up. See? But otherwise we are at the mercy of the whole cycle. Waking, dream, deep sleep. Waking, dream, deep sleep. Waking, dream, deep sleep. Waking, reincarnation. Every day we are getting reincarnated. Rebirth is there. Similarly, if you take the total life that you were born, the consciousness entered into this body, mind, organism, it has lived the whole life, and when this body dies, it will again take another birth. So you can you can be absorbed in the mind. If you read Gondhavlekar Maharaj's biography, there was one person, yogi, whose mind was absorbed for many cycles of creation. And when Gondhavlekar Maharaj goes there in Naimisharanya, enters into the mountain with his subtle body, he sees the yogi sitting there. He disturbs him in the mind, introduces a thought in his mind. He wakes up. He says, has Ram taken birth? Gondhavlekar Maharaj says, he took birth in Treta Yuga. This is Kali Yuga again. He says, again I missed him. Which means, how many cycles he has been sitting? But he is still miserable. What is his misery? That he has not seen the Lord. He has not seen the Lord. So mind was absorbed, but he has not seen the Lord. In Bhagavad also the story comes that Jad Bharat is there, Bharata is there, the king Bharata. After 10,000 years of doing japa of Om Namo Narayanaya, mind is absorbed. Very well trained mind. But was that because, even though the mind was well trained, did he get a human birth the next time? Or did he become free from birth and death? No. Because even after so much training of 10,000 years or many, very, very long time, the mind still got attached to a deer, and the next life he became a deer. Then after being a deer, he lived in the ashram, listened to the mantras, shlokas, satsang, etc. Then but he remembered his previous life because of the sadhana that he had done, the practices that he had done. He says, I will not make the same mistake again like I did in the previous verse. I will not get distracted by anything. And as a result, very quickly the body dies, and the next life he is again born as a human being. Liberation is possible only through human birth. See? And then he thinks that throughout my life, again people will demand this, demand that, I'll have to do this, he acts as if he is stupid from the birth itself. He doesn't act as if he is stupid. He is continuously from the birth itself. He is contemplating on the truth. He says, this is my last birth. I am not going to take birth again. Because rebirth is not possible if at the time of death your thought is on the reality, on who you are, on the conscious principle, on the spirit. But to remain focused on the spirit at the time of death requires a lifetime of practice. It just doesn't happen like that. Just doesn't happen like that. What you are absolutely convinced about, what you are absolutely, if your fear about something is greater than your conviction about Brahman or reality or the spirit, then the last thought will be about that fear. It will not be about Brahman. If your need to feed yourself is greater than the need to realize yourself, then at the time of death the thought will be of the food, not of the God. See? So you check yourself. Have you prepared your mind that even by default it is always thinking of the spirit? Tada drashtuhu swarupe avasthanam. Is it contemplating on the consciousness? Is it remaining a witness all the time? Otherwise, again rebirth will be there. So here the teacher is saying, yes, absorption will remove the misery of the mind, but the total misery is not removed, because again there will be rebirth, there will be death, there will be rebirth, there will be death. If you want permanent freedom from all miseries, you have to become free from birth and rebirth, rebirth and death. And that is only possible by tada drashtuhu swarupe avasthanam, by establishing yourself in yourself. That is the only way. See what happens in absorption when we are studying, doing pranayam, or we are doing japa, etc. Pranayam, for example. When we do pranayam, all the subconscious impressions that are there, they are pressed away. They are not allowed to manifest. They are not allowed to manifest. It's like you have got a kettle and the steam is building up, and you are not allowing the steam to get out of the kettle. And when you do allow the steam to come out of the kettle, what does it sound like? It screams, isn't it? Whee! Or whatever the sound comes. So the sounds that we are coming out with, the terrible sounds, is because the steam, the pressure is there in our subconscious mind. And that pressure in the subconscious mind is coming out as the speech, as all the activity. See? So when we do pranayam, when we do japa, that pressure, it's not allowed to manifest. You are not working it out. You are forcing it not to express, but you are creating a new data, your new program. What? Om Namah Shivaya, for example. In pranayam, no Om Namah Shivaya. You are just putting pressure. I am only going to focus on the breath. I will not breathe in, I will not breathe out. Let me see. Because if breathing in and out is not there, thought cannot manifest. It's a scientific thing. It is a formula. Thought can only manifest if the breathing is going on. If no breath, the thought manifestation is not possible. For some time it will be there, but after some time it will close. It will not be allowed to manifest. So here, the release from the mental duality and bondage cannot be achieved through such struggle and forced effort, but only by totally erasing all impressions from the mind. So how do we remove all the subconscious impressions, memories that we have collected because of our likes and dislikes, joys and sorrows? because of our guilts and anxieties throughout our life. How do we get rid of all these subconscious impressions? We can't even imagine how many are there. Little bit sadhana we do, they start coming out and we get afraid. How do we get rid of it? The only sure way of eradicating them once and for all completely within this lifetime is by contemplating on the spirit that you are. Contemplate, being the witness, not again and again cancelling yourself as the witness by making statements that I don't know how to control my mind. It is not your mind. You have got nothing to do with the mind. Let it come, let it go, let it be guilty, let it be anxious. You don't worry about it. Let it have thoughts or let it have no thoughts. Let it have good or bad thoughts. Who cares? You don't identify with them. If other people rub it in you, don't react. Is your goal in this life is to please other people, or is your goal to realize yourself before this body dies? That is important, isn't it? Is your goal to be socially responsible? Is your goal to be a part of the society? Is your goal to be accepted by everyone in the society? Or is your goal to realize who you are before this body drops? It can drop tomorrow. It can drop next moment. While I am talking, I can be gone next moment. Heart attack comes, gone. Then ambulance will be there. You will have the trouble. You will become even more miserable. Brother died in front of us. Now we are created more work for us and expenses on top of that. See, I die peacefully. Oh, gone. Who cares about what others think? See, best thing, I am talking about the reality and it all stops. Fantastic way to go, isn't it? So be clear what you want out of this life. Be clear what is your end destination in this life. That is all up to you, everyone. It cannot be forced upon you. But that you find yourself in this class, studying, listening, to only hear this again and again, isn't it? Nothing else. Brahmajnanam vina na syat iti Vedanta dindimaha. Without knowing one's own essential nature, it is not possible to get out of the cycle of repeated births and deaths. So proclaim the Shrutis, so roars the Vedanta. The various yogas, japa, pranayama, etc., 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 they are all only techniques. They are only techniques. Vedanta is not a technique. Vedanta is not the means. Yoga is the means. Vedanta is not the means. Then what is Vedanta? Veda Anta. What are the Vedas talking about? In the conclusion, about the self, isn't it? How they are talking about you, about the self? Through words. Through words. But when we say Veda Anta, it means end of words. That what is left behind is the self. So Vedanta is only talking about. I can't even say talking about, because Vedanta, the end of Vedanta is the self. We can't even say Vedanta is, when we take Vedanta is talking about self, then Vedanta will become the means. But it is not the means. See? There is nowhere in Vedanta, take any Upanishad, it is only talking about the self. That this is the self, this is the self, this is the self, this is the self. See? So, but we are not saying that the mind should not be controlled. You use your various techniques to control the mind, but your attention must eventually fall upon the spirit, the conscious principle. If it is only about absorbing the mind and not realizing the essential spirit, then you are going the wrong way. Because for such a person, there is birth, repeat, it keeps repeating. Once the source is reached, the mind will cease to be a tyranny. Let the world, God's creation, be as it is. What is God's creation again? What is God's creation? Space, air, fire, water, earth, mind, intellect, and everything in this. Don't worry about anything. You focus on you being the witness. You focus on you being the observer. You focus on you being the spirit. Nothing can be changed about this world. One day the cat behaves in a particular way, she allows you to caress. Next day she bites you. Same cat. I took purposely the example of cat. Humans do the same thing. One day they are nice, next day they are barking. Same person. Speak to them the same way. So don't worry about this world. Then why we become miserable? Oh, I don't know what he thinks of himself. Yesterday he was so nice. Why is he? Majority of the people is not like this. When we are in the ashram, why Swamiji is behaving like that to him? Why is he scolding him? He is also another student. He is also another devotee. He is a great devotee of that great Mahatma. Why is he scolding him? Who are you to interfere in someone else's interaction? You worry about your peace of mind. By thinking like this, are you going to find an answer? Are you going to find an answer? One day I asked Swamiji, we were going on a walk on a beach. I said, Swamiji, when will that day come when I can remember all the scriptures at the drop of a, you are giving a lecture and you remember this verse and that verse and this verse and that verse. As much as I might try, I can't remember any verses from any scriptures, not even Bhagavad Gita. Some one or two, but the appropriate verses I don't remember. He didn't answer. He just looked at me like this, kept boring. I got scared. I kept quiet. Not scared, but I knew that enough. The message has gone. Whatever the answer has to come will come. Next day again we went on a walk. He put his hand on my shoulders. He says, Brahmachari, that time I was a Brahmachari. He said, Brahmachari, I was also thinking yesterday on what you told me, that you can't remember anything. Anyway, I was also thinking, because I can't think about you, I'm thinking about myself. He says, and I was observing my mind, Swamiji is telling me. I thought, okay, now uh, something great is going to come out. And it was great. He says, I was also thinking how lucky Paramananda is that even if he wants to think the verses, nothing comes in his mind. And I want to make my mind empty, and all the time it is bombarding, verses after verses after verses after verses. When will that day come when naturally, without any effort, my mind will become calm like Paramananda's? That I want to think of the verse, but no answer is coming. When will that day happen? From that day, I don't compare myself to anyone. Otherwise, he being my teacher, I was comparing myself to him, isn't it? That when will I become like him? For what? Is the purpose to copy him, or is the purpose to know the self? That only a great teacher can guide you like this. Otherwise I would have, if I didn't have a teacher like him, I would have got stuck somewhere. He would have said, Acha, you can't remember anything? Start mugging every Bhagavad Gita, start mugging all the Upanishads. And for my whole life, I'll be caught up in, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam, Bhaja Mudmate, Samprapte Sannihite Kale, Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukrinkarne. I'll be learning Sanskrit, I'll be learning every morning, every evening, any free time. Now I have to learn this verse, now I have to learn that verse. There's no end. How? Because even studying and learning the verses, it's taking you extrovert, isn't it? You are trying to increase the memory of your mind, but you are not the mind. If it happens naturally, it's a different thing. If it happens naturally, it's a different thing. But if I am comparing to Swamiji or to any other person and then initiating that, I am creating more data for myself. But the way he answered me, from that moment on, no comparison, no competition was not there anyway, but no comparison with anyone. I totally accept myself as I am. And I am watching that this acceptance is of the mind, and I am watching that the mind is come to this conviction. Very, very important. Now, there is no bad feeling, there is no jealousy, there is no expectation, there is no anxiety. When I come across people who are more educated, more well versed in the scriptures, nothing like that. There is no good or bad because of remembering or not remembering. See? And that requires a sincere teacher, sincere master to guide your mind in that direction, isn't it? Otherwise, we all like to get attached and get caught up with someone or the other. So, stop worrying about the world, the God's creation. Stop worrying about the world. Take control of your mind, purify your mind, and then come to know the self. Be the witness, be aware all the time. Be conscious of everything, be alert, be vigilant. Don't take the position, I am the mind. The Ishvara Srishti, the God's creation, is not the obstacle for knowing the truth. It is the Jiva Srishti that has to be negated and conquered. So it is not the world outside which needs to be fixed. Everything, everyone is going through what they need to go through in this world so that they can evolve. The type of husband, the type of, the type of person you are living with, because husband and wife are your mental creation. The man with whom, the people with whom you are, the animals with whom you are, the trees which you are around you or not around you, the weather that you find yourself in, the country that you are in, you cannot do anything about it. Leave it. Don't create a parallel world in your mind. I keep saying, if you wear blue glasses, you will see a blue world. If you say green glasses, you will see green world. If you say red glasses, you will see red world. If you wear black glasses, you will see black world. If you wear clear glasses, you will see the world as it is. So you have superimposed the various colors by keeping them in front of your eyes. So what are the colors through which we see the world? The colors of our subconscious impressions, the vasanas. Based on that swabhava, based on that character that we are, as the world knows us, based upon that we interact with the God's creation. Everyone says to some person, he is a great Mahatma. Another person, because of the data that is there, I think he is a crook. Isn't it? Another person says, oh, this is fantastic, what a wonderful weather. But because of your data, what a dreary weather. See? So clear glasses means clear mind, which is not stuck anywhere. It is neither sattvic, neither rajasic, nor tamasic. You stand apart. What is the approach to gain this Brahma Jnanam? Anivrutte srishte, anivrutte srishte, dvaite tasya mrushatmatam, dvaite tasya mrushatmatam, bodhva brahma dvayam bodhum, bodhva brahma dvayam bodhum, shakyam vastvaikyavadinah, shakyam vastvaikyavadinah. It is possible for the followers of the Advait Vedanta to know Brahman even without the disappearance of the world of duality, having once ascertained its illusory nature. What is the illusory nature? The names and forms are the illusory nature. The world is real, but the names and forms are illusory. Why? They're continuously changing. That which is continuously changing cannot be real. Therefore, there is no need to meddle with the creation of the Ishvara to know one's own essential nature. I have come across people. Why can't we have collective realization? Why can't we have collective realization? It's not possible. It's an individual journey. Your attention, when you say collective, means your attention is on everyone. If that is the purpose that you are born for, then it's a different matter. Hanumanji, Ramchandraji said, Hanuman, tell me, what do you want? First he asked, what is your relationship to me? He says, when I consider myself to be the body, I am your servant. When I consider myself to be the soul, I am a part of you. And when I consider myself to be the spirit, you and me are one. There is no difference between you and me. Lord Ram was so happy. He says, tell me, I'm so happy with you, ask me anything. He says, oh Lord. So he is a realized master. He knows that he is the self, even while living. Therefore he could do so many great things. He says, as long as in this creation, not only this creation, but as many cycles of creation, the name of Lord Ram is there, let me be there in that creation to spread, to listen to the glory of Lord Ram. So he continues, he is one of the Chiranjeevis. He is one of the immortals who's living on this planet continuously till the end of creation. So also the Saptarishis. So also the Sanat Kumaras. They are immortals. Living. Not immortality after death. They are living immortals. Living. They are all. Just now I was reading somewhere. Reading or someone was telling me about sage Vashishta. That they have seen sage Vashishta somewhere. In Nepal or in North India somewhere. Similarly, so many incidences of Hanumanji are there, isn't it? So here the teacher is saying that if you are a follower of Advaita Vedanta, then do not worry about the disappearance of the world. Let the world be there. Let the body be there. Let the mind be there. Let the confusions be there. Accept everything. What is the second line? Reject nothing. And what is the third line? Retain nothing. Accept everything, reject nothing, retain nothing. Be like a mirror. And when you are having that disposition, then you are not initiating anything. You are not initiating anything. You are accepting whatever is coming, so be it. The thought that is coming to me right now, just before I went to take shower, a call came. Swamiji, can you please come over for dosa? It is Navratri time, we really want to give you something. So I said, now? No, Swamiji, please. So I'm going for dosa after class. Then while coming to the class, again a call came. Swamiji, are you at home? I really want to see you. I'm talking about accepting, accepting everything, not rejecting anything, and not retaining anything. So I said, you can come tomorrow. No, I want to come today. I want to really see you. I said, okay, I'm going for dinner somewhere, Diksha. You also come, have dosa with me, and we'll talk. What else can I say? When I say that I'm going, but still they want to come, it's fine. He said, no, I want to see you here. Dosa, we will think about it, but I really want. Okay, come. It's not my time. See? So they are coming. He is coming to meet. If he wants, he will come there. If he wants, he will stay here. See? But to have this disposition, that you accept everything, you reject nothing and retain nothing. Then you will say, how will I live my whole day? There are so many things that I have to do. in the house. Oh, this has to be taken, this has to be fixed, that has to be paid. Let the mind do it. Why you are worried about it? One part of the mind will be on an automatic mode. It will think, it will work it out. One part of the mind you keep. No reaction. If it happens, good. If it doesn't happen, also okay. No, that it is the Lord's Leela. I got nothing to do with it. And slowly, slowly, slowly you will fall into that position. Whether it is, the result is conducive and it has given you profit, or it is not conducive and it has made you a loss, it does not matter. Does not matter. Because is your purpose in life to make profit and loss, or is your purpose in life to know the truth? But you play the game. You play the game of life, but without attachment. How do you play the game of life without attachment? By accepting everything, rejecting nothing, and retaining nothing. That is how you play the game of life. That is how you play. For that you have to be alert about it all the time. So where is the problem? Where is the illusion? Where is the delusion? Where is the wrong perception? Where is the projection? It's all in the mind. The mind is perceiving the divine world in a wrong manner. And that wrong manner is because of the program that it has allowed to manifest out of it. So you stop getting attached to the mind. Let it solve itself. Let it sort itself out. Every night it sorts itself out and goes to sleep to rejuvenate. Every night. As much demanding issues may be there in its life, it will sort them out. It will drop them and will go to rest. But that is a temporary rest. The problems remain the next day. We want a permanent rest. We want a permanent solution. After which there is no more, nothing to be solved after that. Reality is that substratum which supports all the differences. The dualism, the dvandva, is the mithya. So there is really no duality, because the whole Lord is there. Lord created the creation out of himself, so the creation is also divine. But where is the duality? The duality is in our mind. This mind needs to be what we are doing is re-educating the mind so that it sees the oneness. But as long as we are re-educating the mind, our attention is on the mind. One more shift has to be made, and that is we re-educate the mind to become convinced that the self, the spirit, only by knowing the spirit, this whole magic, this maze that we are caught up in, birth, rebirth, joys and sorrows, likes and dislikes, bondage and liberation, this maze, this matrix, we become free from. We become free from this hypnosis of the mind. It is of no use fretting about what cannot be changed, what has been going on since time immemorial. It is wise to accept it all as Ishvara Leela and concentrate the attention on removing the Dvaita in oneself. So what is the best and surest way to remove the duality within your mind? The opposites within your mind? The sense of differences in your mind? The sense of otherness in your mind? How? What is the best way? To make the mind focus on the on the on the self. Let it contemplate on the uncontemplatable, on unthinkable, and that unthinkable is the spirit. Let the mind contemplate on what is its base, what is its foundation, what is its substratum because of which the mind is able to express itself. See? But this convincing is required for the mind. We may hear it in satsangs many times, but it must go deep. It will go deep only when you contemplate on it. When you contemplate on it. When you say enough is enough, I don't want to continue like this anymore. The negation of the duality created by the Lord is not spiritual unfoldment, advancement. Negation of the duality created by the Lord. The world that is, it's a contradictory language. The world that is created by the Lord, it should not be, negated. What do you mean by not negated? That the world does not exist. That the world is mithya. That the whole world is nothing but an imagination of the mind. Don't come to such conclusions. Huh? Accept it as it is. And wherever the Lord is placing you at any given moment, do what the best you can do in that moment without any guilt or without any expectation. Without any guilt and without any expectation. Any moment. Because every moment something you will find yourself in some position, isn't it? Some interaction, something will be going on all the time in your life. Do it 100%. Without any guilt, without any expectation. And with inspiration, with a smile on the face. If these few things are added, then you are accepting everything, you are rejecting nothing, and you are not retaining anything. Then what's next? And suddenly as you go through life, you will find you are all the time in that awareness. It is not that spirit can be created. It cannot be created. It is not that consciousness can be created. No, it cannot be created. You will find that all the time you are in that in a detached mode. Watching all the time. The performance, the responses, the interactions at the level of thought, word and deed. Continuously you are watching. And the more you are standing apart, the more you will fine-tune the whole process. Then what should be done? The student is asking, then what should be done? The teacher says, by the study of the scriptures, by the upadesh of the guru, by knowing one's own essential nature, one should transcend the jiva dvaita. That means individual creation. He should transcend that. This is stated in the next sloka. So what are the three ingredients that are required? First is study of the scriptures. Second is study the scriptures through a teacher. And third, realize the self, contemplate on the self. Otherwise, if you study the scriptures yourself, some people get exactly the wrong meaning, inverted meaning sometimes. So, what is the next? The importance of the scriptures and the teacher and knowing one's own essential nature. This will be told in our next verse, in our next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Just sit quietly for a minute. Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari